Although small businesses are hailed as the chief engine of growth for the city, these businesses across New York's many main streets are struggling just to survive. We must take action to protect these businesses and the good jobs that they provide. In presenting this panel, MAS hopes to highlight successful innovations that have been adopted elsewhere, explore distinct pressures faced by small business owners in New York City, provide strategies to drive local economic development, and establish a constituency that advocates for policy reform.
I actually think preserving neighborhood diversity is probably one of the most challenging, vexing issues confronting the city, because it absolutely tests the limit of city government. Who should make these decisions? How should decisions be made that fairly balance an individual's property rights, an individual's livelihood, and a community's sense of self? Diversity, whether it's of place, of people, of community, of businesses, I think is New York's greatest competitive advantage. You know, having a deep water port, having airports, having museums and hospitals and great academic institutions is all really important, but they only get used, people are only attracted to come here because of our diversity. So tonight we're going to explore how to preserve diversity, with particular emphasis on small retail businesses.
And at the same time, of course, all over the city in low, moderate, and upper income neighborhoods, the experience of local shops closing, chains coming in droves, really started to raise the volume on a conversation that's really been had in the city for a long, long time. We are not the first generation of New Yorkers to deal with this issue. And a lot of municipalities, through land use regulations, through zoning, have passed ordinances. In San Francisco, they have a very narrow definition of a formula business. Businesses that have more than 11 outlets. And then they turn to all the corporate branding. You know, if they have a corporate design that they use for their store, if the employees wear a uniform, if they put out their own products with their own brand on the label. This is how they define the issue. This is how they define what is a formula business. 27 cities have a citywide ordinance that actually has a store size cap. And basically, they're telling developers or property owners the store cannot be bigger than X thousand square feet. And this really helps to sustain small-scale, pedestrian-oriented retail centers by making each storefront is 1,500 to 2,000 or whatever the number is. For example, I think it's in Belfast, Maine, they have a cap of something like 65,000 square feet, or maybe it's even bigger, but anything that's over 40,000 square feet that wants to locate within the district where the store size cap is in place has to be reviewed. And that gives them the opportunity to figure out, do we need this business? Again, it's the same questions. Is this a duplicative business? Is there, do we really think our community wants to support this kind of business? And then another benefit program has been dubbed the big box tax. The goal here to counteract the negative economic effects of some of the corporate retailers, the big box developments. And the funds would be used theoretically, because there isn't one in place anywhere in the country, to make up for the fact that these corporations are not providing decent jobs. Another way to level the playing field is to set aside specific space in new developments for small businesses. And this would really compel developers to devote space to local retail establishments. I think this is a great tool, actually. A lot of groups feel and advocates feel that giving large incentives to the chains and to large corporate retailers and giving them a great advantage for locating here shouldn't happen, that those advantages, those financial incentives, should only go to local businesses.
We did a survey earlier this year of small businesses across the borough of Manhattan, tip to toe, all 12 community districts in the borough. We surveyed over 1,000 businesses. And it wasn't in your Times Squares and Madison Avenues. We went to neighborhood shopping corridors, places that were low density, the kind of places that you would shop every day and see your local neighborhood stores. And it was kind of, we saw the good, we saw the bad, and we like to think we're seeing the future for these corridors. Almost half of the businesses we surveyed thought that they would not be in business in 5 years' time. They would be gone. It really is a comparative advantage. It really is a competitive advantage that we have these incredibly diverse streetscapes. As my boss likes to say, you don't move to Manhattan from Kansas to shop at Costco. You just don't. And having these incredible corridors of incredibly diverse stores is why people come to this greatest city in the world.
A healthy city isn't just about clean air or just about proper waste management or just about green spaces punctuating the urban concrete vertical villages, but that it was also about healthy neighborhood economies.
Retail changes every 5 years, has been my experience, and it's just fascinating land use. Housing remains fairly stable or changes gradually. Industry stays fairly stable or changes gradually. Retail every 5 years, you're dealing with a whole new phenomena, every 10 years. The big box phenomena happened during the last recession. What will be the most effective tools for the new economy? And I would suggest that development and growth will clearly go down for about 10 years, 5 to 10 years. Zoning is mainly a tool for shaping development and growth. It says, when you build bigger, you will do this. You will set aside space for retail. That doesn't happen if no one's building. So we should get those zoning tools down on paper. No reason not to, because these things are cyclical, but they won't give us the immediate bang that we're looking for. The whole shop local movement, whether it's based, as I think rightfully so, on a sustainability argument. Vicki told me the statistic in the car that, what was it again? 70% of the dollars are recycled if it's a local business, and 40% are recycled if it's a chain. So there's a very strong, compelling argument.
What's the right level of government intervention in thinking about community character and enforcing community character?
One of the issues facing New York is that we are so huge. We're 5 counties. The reason why the zoning ordinance is so thick is they're trying to come up with a rule book that applies in all instances without having to ask anyone's permission, that it's always in the book. And the result of that is all the tools that we keyed up become very abusive to at least a handful, if not a good number of communities. So a community that, for example, when I would venture downtown Brooklyn in the 1970s and 80s would have welcomed chains because it was a way of increasing the attraction of downtown Brooklyn as the destination in comparison to, let's say, 14th Street or 34th Street.
I think, Adam, you raised the question about, what is our attitude about government intervention? And it seems to me that government already has intervened. It intervenes every single day of the week. It's upzoned all these neighborhoods. It engages in corporate welfare right and left. I think it's perverted the land use process in New York City by getting the state to get involved in its role as kind of a provider of eminent domain. So I think one of the kind of global questions I have is, how do we do something to fight City Hall?
I couldn't agree more. The borough president agrees with you on both counts. We just wrote a report in our office called Senseless Subsidies, which is about the ICIP program, which costs all of us $400 million a year in lost tax revenue. It's one of the most egregious corporate welfare programs this city offers.
The question I have is, why do you think so many people who hate Walmart like Trader Joe's? That really points out the subtleness and the complexity of this issue. They're both chains. They both sell things that we need. They both sell things under their own name. They both sell them cheap.
One thing we should ask ourselves is to look under the surface of our Trader Joe's. I do shop there, but I can tell you, and I've been studying this issue for a year and a half, and I can't actually off the top of my head tell you whether those are union jobs. I mean, there's a whole issue under the issue under the issue. I think that's my point. That this is a lot more complex than whose brand are we buying and how much are we paying for toothpaste. This is really about the very vitality of our local economics, our local economic community.
I think this is a really important and engaging conversation, and if we're going to make New York a more sustainable city, we have to try and figure out how to solve this complex problem. Hope you can join MAS as a member and get your free book tonight, and visit MAS's website to find out about more programs. And if you want to read more about the census of places that matter and the local retailers, that's placematters.net. Thank you, everyone.